The event viewer is one of those things that if you don't use it much, you probably think it's pretty worthless, that it's hard to get any information from it because it's so confusing. If you use it a lot, you get very good at using it and you think it's the most wonderful thing since sliced bread. So the idea is to get a lot of practice at it. It collects various log entries. Application logs are those logs that applications collect. For example, when applications are installed and uninstalled, it might put an entry here. Or when there are errors in applications, an error will be generated here. And you can discover, well, what application is creating that error. In this case, I can find out what application that is if I dig down into this. And I can, in fact, here's some information about what application that is, and I can discover what's causing that error. Security logs have to do with individuals and software. And for example, when that software or when those individuals access things, for example, when individuals log on or log off to a system, or when they access a file or a folder. And by the way, it doesn't log everything by default. You have to go into group policy and turn on auditing of who you want to audit and for what kinds of things you want to audit. Do you want to audit only when there's a failure logging on, say, to the network, or when there are successes logging on to the network? Otherwise, the system would just get overwhelmed with so many logons and logoffs. Setup has to do with when things are installed and uninstalled. System has to do with when the system is turned off and turned on, rebooted, and so forth. Let's go back here to the security log, for example, and look down through some of these things and see if we could discover maybe what some of these might do. For example, this service host, servicehost.exe, and I can tell exactly what program this is generating this 5156 event. Well, 5156 event, if I look at Google for 515, event ID 5156, and that's exactly what I did here. I just Googled event ID 5156. I can see that this event documents when a Windows filtering platform has allowed a connection, a program to connect to another process. So in other words, some program, this service.exe program, has connected to a process. And I can get information about, well, what process has it connected to? And what program is it? In this case, it's a certain program, process ID 3804, and it connected to, let's see, from this address and this port to this address and to this port. Here's the protocol. Here's some more details about it. Here's the source address, the source port, destination address, destination port. If I know a little bit about networking, I can look this stuff up and I can learn what these addresses are, what these ports are, and learn a lot about what this thing is and what it's trying to connect to. So a little bit of savvy here will go a long way, and a little bit of research will go a long way about telling me what's happening on my system and should it be happening or should it not be happening. Now, if I go down here until I find, say, something that didn't connect correctly, let's see if I can find one. And of course, I'm not going to be able to find one off the top of my head here. Of course, well, I don't see one offhand. But if I could find an error, then I could find out, well, what program didn't connect and why didn't it connect? What was it trying to connect to? And I could ferret out exactly what's going on, the reason why it failed. So yeah, it does take some work and it takes some practice trying to figure out why it's doing what it's doing. But once you have that practice under your belt, it is extremely valuable in finding out exactly what's going on under the hood.